Let's be honest. Shopping, not my thing. I go to the store. There's a lot of people there. It's just not my thing. It's not football. All right. I spend way too long scrolling websites just looking for something simple like a nice pair of jeans. And I'm either overwhelmed by all the choices or can't find anything my style and end up with stuff that doesn't fit and doesn't work. That's why I use Stitch Fix. You just take a quick style quiz, share your size, your vibe, and your budget, and boom, you're matched with a real human stylists who handle the rest. They take care of the work for you. They send you a fix box with clothes that actually fit and make sense for your life, work, weekends, whatever. It saves you time. You look great, and you don't even have to think about it. That's the best part. It's no risk, all style. Try it all on in the comfort of your home. Keep what works, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns, always, and no subscription required. Plus, get a free try-on for your first fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/podcast to get $20 off your first order, and they'll waive your styling fee. That's stitchfix.com/podcast.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Coors Light. These days, everything is go, go, go. It's nonstop hustle all the time. Work, friends, family, expect you to be on 24/7? Well, sometimes you just need to reach for a Coors Light because it's made to chill. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged. It's as crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. It is literally made to chill. Coors Light is the one I choose when I need to unwind. So when you want to hit reset, reach for the beer that's made to chill. Get Coors Light in the new look delivered straight to your door with Drizzly or Instacart. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Guys, this is Ian Happ from the Chicago Cubs. I'm excited to announce that my show, The Compound, is now part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Join me and my teammates Dakota Mekas and Zach Short. This week, we welcome Cubs first baseman, World Series champion Anthony Rizzo to The Compound. Check it out. Subscribe. The Compound on the Blue Wire Podcast Network.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
Surgery on his meniscus in March. Would you expect that he will play in these games or not?
Yes.
He will?
I expect he will play, yes.
Okay. And he wants to play.
And the same with Frank. I mean, and I think that's also exciting for us to get a chance to see, our team out there competing at full strength.
Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, I'm actually going to start with a question for you. In the last month, the Blue Wire Podcast Network has added former NBA player Baron Davis onto the podcast network and current MLB player Ian Happ. My question is, how much lower on the totem pole do you think that we could get?
We were already the bottom of the Blue Wire totem pole.
So we're good then. It hasn't affected us at all then.
It hasn't affected us yet. They still keep us on for Suns content for whatever reason. But man, it's awesome. BD, on the podcast. Maybe we can get him on to talk about his relationship with Steve Nash sometime. That would be really fun.
Yeah, I tried baiting him on Twitter to talk about that Step Brothers video, but I imagine I was thinking about this because that video is hilarious, but it's also like 12 or 13 years old, and it's probably kind of embarrassing for him to even watch it at this point. So I can't imagine he wants to like engage with people talking about that. But I do think he probably has interesting perspective on Steve Nash, being that they were very, very close, and they had some pretty intense battles back in the day. Ian Happ, I don't really know anything about baseball, but people seem to be really excited about Ian Happ, so that makes me excited. I know you know about baseball.
I don't know about baseball as much as I used to. I mean, I know I know who Ian Happ is, obviously, but it's just exciting in general. It's exciting to me with Barron too, because he's not just an investor, but because he believes in the brand enough that he's also going to be doing his own podcast and getting those voices out there. You know, I'm not just saying this because I work, as this kind of freelancer for Blue Wire, but I'm saying it because I really believe it. I think it's super important to give former athletes, these outlets where they don't necessarily have to just go the traditional route and say run to ESPN. That there are different ways for them to connect with their audiences. And, even coming from the perspective as a guy who doesn't necessarily have an athletic bone in my body and being like a stat nerd type person, I think there's ways for us and for former athletes to kind of come together and see eye to eye on a lot of different perspectives. So it's really exciting for the brand. It's really exciting for us.
I think that we saw what could happen when journalists, former athletes, whatever you want to say, work for a gigantic corporate entity like ESPN, when they kind of all in unison spoke out in support of the bubble, which will be broadcasted on ESPN and takes place at a Disney property, which is all part of their massive, gigantic corporate umbrella. So it's nice that Baron Davis, just like you said, has the ability of doing it. Now, like you said, he's an investor. I've begun already telling people that he's my boss directly, so I'm going to continue doing that. I guess.
God, I hope Kevin Jones, the actual CEO of Blue Wire, doesn't choose to check in on how we're doing by listening to this podcast.
What do you mean? I don't think he minds. I'm talking up the podcast network. I don't know what you're talking. All right, let's get to Sun stuff. There's so much to talk about.
There's a lot.
That's why we started this episode with talking about stuff that only matters to me and you. No, the biggest thing that came out, and you heard his voice, you heard Robert Sarver's voice refuting this at the beginning of this episode. But the biggest thing that happened this week is it was announced by Shams, so like an actual big report. Kelly Oubre is officially out for the resumption of the season. He will not be playing in Orlando. He will continue to rehab. He plans, this is part of it, he plans on traveling with the team to Orlando to be with the team and to recruit Damian Lillard. That wasn't part of the report, but I assume that's what he's doing. And he will not play. That's the biggest thing. So there's a lot to talk about with this. My first reaction, obviously, was disappointed that we didn't get to see Kelly Oubre. I think that was the main thing that I felt. And then immediately anger at Robert Sarver for making such a stupid mistake. But what did you think when you heard the news about Kelly Oubre, Sam?
My initial reaction was all about the basketball side of the stuff. I think we'll get into Sarver and even a little bit about James Jones in a minute. But yeah, my initial reaction was just that this is a huge hit for the Phoenix Suns. And it's unfortunate because, just speaking for us, I think the two times at which we were most optimistic this season, the very first game of the season, going in and blowing out the Sacramento Kings by 30 points, and then bam, that momentum is crushed by DeAndre Ayton being suspended for 25 games. And then fast forward to today, being excited about the season coming back. Yes, it's a 1 in 10,000 chance to make the playoffs, but theoretically, there's this chance to make the playoffs. More importantly, there's this chance to build positive momentum, having a fully healthy lineup, playing the Valley Boys lineup, yada, 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 all this stuff we talked about for the past 2 weeks. Fortunately, that's all crushed now. So, I think... basketball strategy-wise, there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about. Obviously, this puts a much heavier load on Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, first and foremost. Those are the guys who become most important now. Those are the guys who we're looking forward to watching.
Don't you think that it's almost a guarantee that Dario Saric is now going to be starting instead of Cam Johnson? Now, it should be said that that's what happened when he went down. There were some games after Kelly Oubre was out, but there has been some time where they reviewed the numbers as they talked about James Jones and Monty Williams. They looked at the numbers. They saw the net rating numbers. They realized how big that was, how important it was. It seemed like to me they were looking at that from a team building perspective going forward. Of course, the season is now resuming, so they're going to be playing again. To me, I think there's no chance that they start Cam Johnson. I talked about it on Twitter. I think the best move would to just be start Cam Johnson. Mikal Bridges is capable of guarding fours at this point. And you look at the schedule that the Suns they're not playing the Lakers. Like, he'll have the ability of guarding just about every four that's put in front of him in that schedule, assuming it stays to the schedule that we've seen. There's been no official schedule that's been released. And I know when we say stuff like that, it happens the next day. So you'll probably see it by the time you're listening to this episode. But I think that would be fine. I just think if we're looking forward really to the future and they do plan on keeping a non-traditional four with the two forwards that we like in that starting lineup, they should continue to do that and put some more offensive firepower in there with Cam Johnson and see how it works. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%. From a basketball standpoint, I'd really like to unleash Cam. I've been calling for it all season long, and he was starting to show some strides there at the end of the season, maybe that I can talk about a little bit more later on in this episode. The unfortunate thing, though, is you start Cam Johnson at power forward, and here's what happens. Your three best bench players are Aaron Baines, Frank Kaminsky, and Dario Saric.
Right.
None of whom can play small forward without being cooked. I mean, Dario, as mobile as he is for a four, we know that you can't really play him at small forward even. So it's kind of like, where do the minutes come from? Suddenly you're in this situation where what it really does is it exposes the Suns' lack of wing depth, actually,
right,
which is kind of ironic because I feel like an area that the Suns fans have been talking about for a while now is, why do the Suns keep going after wings? They don't need more wings. This kind of shows how important wings are in the NBA in 2020, because if you believe the future at power forward for the Phoenix Suns is not actually to go out and get a traditional power forward, but to kind of convert Kelly Oubre, convert Cam Johnson, someone of that stature, into your power forward, then Mikal Bridges at small forward, Devin Booker at shooting guard, that's not going to cut it. They need more 3-and-D prototype kind of guys. The kinds of guys, again, ironically, that they sort of had more of a couple years ago before they let Derrick Jones Jr. go and become a role player, a decent role player with the Miami Heat, before they let Daniel House go and become a decent role player with the Houston Rockets. They ironically need to find that sort of talent again that they can plug in for depth at backup shooting guard for Devin Booker and backup small forward now for Mikal Bridges. If Cam Johnson is going to play heavy minutes at the four.
Yeah, and we can assume that he probably will be, or sort of that interchangeable 3-4 position that both him and Mikal Bridges kind of play. Cam Johnson, of course, not a net positive defender at this point of his career, so he's gonna get beat. I think regardless of where you play him. But it is kind of funny when you look at the sort of the depth that the Suns have. If you thought about the original power forward depth as we sort of contemplated it when the season began, which seems like 10 years ago, but when it began, it was Dario Saric and Frank Kaminsky, and now most Suns fans want to see Frank Kaminsky at center. I've talked about maybe Dario Saric's best position is at center. Not to say that he's not effective as a power forward. I still think he could be. Obviously, you guys know how I feel. We talk about it all the time. But it is funny how when you sort of, those guys all become centers in your mind, that wing depth completely disappears. Because if we're just talking about small forward depth, then of course they had Kelly Oubre, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson. But when those guys are all of a sudden become the 3 and the 4, that depth disappears. Frank Kaminsky, if he's back, which I don't think we've heard officially on that either.
No, we also haven't. So and after what's happened, we shouldn't make any assumptions anymore.
No, yeah, exactly. Frank Kaminsky, he can play the 4. I actually think he did a relatively good job at the 4. I know a lot of people think that defensively he's better at the 5. To me, he's terrible in both of those positions. So I think offensively he's okay at the 4 or the 5, and he'll kind of be okay there. So I hope he is healthy. We get to see a little bit more depth there. But I think an overall sort of big picture on this is the loss of Kelly Oubre makes all of this matter a little bit less, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That sucks.
It really does suck. It's a bummer, but it sets up kind of situations where now you want to evaluate guys for the future. So, here's the other reason that I want Cam Johnson to start at the 4, because now if the games especially don't matter and we're not bringing Dario Saric back anyway, You owe it to Dario to play him some minutes, but I don't want him to play heavy minutes because he's not a long-term piece for this team going forward. Same with Frank Kaminsky, honestly. I mean, I think Frank has been a nice piece, but I don't really know that he's fits the mold that the Suns are going for long-term. And so, to harp back on what I was talking about a minute ago, now if you're going to play Cam Johnson at the 4, it kind of puts you in a position where, okay, let's think about the types of players that maybe the Suns can go out and acquire this offseason through free agency, via trade, via the draft, at backup shooting guard or small forward. I think the key there is, obviously this team needs depth, but you need that special kind of depth where it's not the situation the Suns were in 5 years ago where they had, Isaiah Thomas coming off the bench when he was obviously too talented to be a sixth man. You need to bring in depth, but they need to be role players who are okay with being role players. And I think to an extent they have that right now. They just have that at the wrong position. Frank Kaminsky is okay with being a role player. He's not clamoring for a starting spot. He just doesn't fit with this roster positionally. But if you go out into the draft, you grab a guy like Devin Vassell, who we've talked about before. I mean, that's exactly literally what I'm talking about. A 3-and-D kind of wing, add to that core, kind of continue to modernize what this team looks like in the future with a guy who's hopefully okay with taking a bench role for a couple of years. Or there's a myriad of free agent guys that I could talk about at those positions too. So now what I'm looking for really is kind of just, unfortunately, the same thing we've been looking for years and years at the end of the season, the end of the regular season for the Suns, which is how can we push this ahead to the future and build on it for next year.
Which is so tiring.
I know.
How
it sucks.
often has the last, now it's 8 games, but let's say how often has the last 10 games of the season been more about the next season than the current season that was actually happening?
I mean,
here's
one other thing. One other thing that I'll say. It was already going to be almost impossible. Now it's even a little bit more impossible, but I feel compelled to throw out this stat. The net ratings for the 5 best players on the Suns, the 5 guys who are going to be in that starting lineup, do you kind of know off the top of your head where they are, like where those 5 guys rank in terms of, by the numbers, who was more impactful than who this season?
Do you have like in order of 5, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I've got literally the 5 pulled up of how much better the Suns played with this guy on the court versus off the court. It's on-off differentials.
Do you want me to try to guess? I guess
I'd say go for it.
I'm going to try. Is Ricky Rubio number 1?
Ricky Rubio is number 1, and I'll throw out the numbers too. Ricky Rubio is number 1. The Suns were 10.3 points per 100 possessions better with Ricky on the floor.
Yes, and that is a product of having no backup point guard.
100% is a product of having terrible guard depth.
Yes. I'm guessing that DeAndre Ayton is number 2?
Devin Booker is number 2.
Okay, I was going to say Devin Booker, and I should have said it. I just
Devin
thought
Booker is
defensively,
a plus 6.6.
And that makes sense too. For a lot of the season, Aaron Baines was great. So it's more difficult to increase your ceiling a lot when you have a good backup center. So then I would put DeAndre Ayton number 3.
Mikal Bridges is actually number 3.
I should have just guessed
Mikal Bridges plus 5.8 always makes the team better. There you go.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm afraid to put DeAndre Ayton here because I struck out twice in a row here. But DeAndre Ayton number 4?
DeAndre Ayton is number 4. DeAndre Ayton plus 4.3.
And I'm guessing Cam Johnson.
No, Kelly Oubre is number 5. Cam Johnson.
Oh, you're including Kelly. Okay.
Sorry, I was including Kelly. Yeah, I kind of botched that game right there. Probably wasn't that fun for the listeners at home. Here's my point, though. Ricky's a plus 10. Booker and Mikal are a plus 6. DeAndre's a plus 4. Kelly Oubre was a plus 1.8 this season. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not trying to take away from an obviously talented player and the third leading scorer on this team. But what it does mean, though, is that Kelly had some obvious weaknesses. I think his net rating really got exposed this season because as good of a finisher as Kelly is, as good as he is when paired with good playmakers like Ricky Rubio and Devin Booker, when you take those guys off the floor, if Kelly Oubre is averaging 1 assist per game and is also your leading scorer, he's just not in a position yet at this point in his career where you can really say he makes anyone better. He doesn't make anyone around him better. And so, you have these lineups where you try to make Kelly the number 1 option if Booker's off the floor, combined with terrible bench depth and Kelly's net rating kind of tanked. It's still going to be super, super, super hard for the Suns to even have any sort of chance of making the playoffs. They still need to go like 8-0, and now it just got harder. They just lost their third leading scorer. I just wanted to point out there are maybe some stats that point to this isn't as catastrophic a loss as it could be. Like, I think, honestly, if Ricky Rubio went down right now, that would be a way worse loss for the Suns. Like, that would instantly end your season. This has a 99.99% chance of making all of this meaningless, but maybe there's still a chance.
If Ricky Rubio went down right now, I would not blame anyone for just not going. Because what's the point at that point? I mean, you're not even kind of building for the future because the main important guys may not even be there, and they're probably not going to be, the ones playing are probably not going to be here next year. So that would be a disaster. I think I do like to picture the formula, as I talked about before, was Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton plus speed. Like, the idea of the wings was that they were fast. They play fast. The bigger they are, generally, the slower they play. And if you take that speed away from that team, it's less interesting. I love the idea of Devin Booker, one of the best transition finishers in the NBA. Mikal Bridges, actually close to the top as well. Not as high usage on transition, but gotten a lot better at that, using his length and speed and his brain to get to the right angles. Then, of course, DeAndre Ayton. And if you put Cam Johnson out on the wing on that transition, I just love picturing a fast break with just getting the ball to Ricky Rubio as quickly as possible and all five of those guys just sprinting down the court. It obviously, it may not be as good as Kelly Oubre because of his ability to attack the rim, but if you can get some threes out of transition with Cam Johnson, I think that would just make the offense a little bit easier in a lot of cases. So
for sure,
it is this point where the reason I want to see this is because it's more watchable when those five guys are on the floor.
Right.
If you mix it up and you put Dario Saric in there, he's not going to be here next year. It's less watchable. Do any of these lineups turn into wins? No, because the bench is really bad. Like, most likely not. It's probably not. Will they get a few? Probably. They probably can get a few. But the depth is a problem with this team.
Well,
and it just got a little worse.
Exactly. Because when you had Kelly, you could afford to play Kelly at small forward as well as power forward, not to mention Cam Johnson. What that did is it bumped up Mikal Bridges to also being able to play backup 2, which freed up Devin Booker to also play backup 1. Like, all of this stuff builds on top of it. It all fits in this kind of puzzle. Now that Mikal Bridges has to spend probably all of his time playing the 3, there's no one to back up Devin Booker, which means Devin Booker can't back up Ricky Rubio, which means now either Devin Booker and Ricky Rubio need to play 45 minutes a night each, or Javon Carter, Ty Jerome, or Elliot Kobo, one of those 3 is out there for 15 to 20 minutes a game. There's just no way to avoid it. And if those guys are out there,
to do a podcast segment about which of those guys should be playing for the 100th time this year.
Please don't. No, we're not doing that anymore, because we're admitting here on this episode that they're just not good enough, and that conversation is meaningless at this point. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, at this point, I think the Suns being a part of this is almost unfortunate in a way, because it's hard for them to build on this. Now, does that say that I won't derive some sort of entertainment or enjoyment out of this? No, I'm still looking forward to seeing these guys play basketball, as long as Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton are playing, Ricky Rubio as well. I think that we'll find some way to have some fun with this, and it still will be nice to see some basketball on my TV again. But I think the chances, as we talked about in our previous 2 episodes, were already insanely slim, and they got a little bit slimmer. One thing I want to talk about, a lot slimmer, I should say, by the way. One thing I want to talk about before we move on from this topic is just how stupid of a mistake it was for Robert Sarver to go on the radio, local radio, and so confidently say that Kelly Oubre is expected to play in the bubble. And the way that he worded it was hilarious, because you could hear, you guys heard it at the beginning of this episode. I stuck it in at the beginning of this episode. It was on the radio here. I think it's probably Gambo, I imagine, asks, do you expect Kelly Oubre to play? And they pause. He just says, yes. It's just like, he's so confident that he's going to play. And why? I don't know. And here's the thing. Some people will say, well, maybe something changed. Yeah, that's why you don't say yes or no. That's the easiest possible thing. You say his rehab's going really well, and we hope that he's available for these games at the end of the season. And you continue to say that until you have confirmed with Kelly Oubre that he's healthy, because he went on an interview and said himself that he was not healthy. Like a week later, Robert Sarver said that he was. This was already a confusing display by two people that should be working together, completely not communicating. This was a problem with Kawhi Leonard in the past.
God.
Look, it was. I think that it's important to understand why it was a problem, because players do not like to think that the organization is in charge of their health. Now, is it at the same degree as Kawhi Leonard? No. But is it obvious to learn from that Kawhi Leonard situation in the way that you talk about players in the future? Yes, it's an easy, avoidable mistake to make. And I want people to look at the way the Brooklyn Nets talk about Kevin Durant's return. Now, Kevin Durant's injury usually has like a 300-ish day turnaround where players are able to return from it. At this point, Kevin Durant is actually has taken the longest time to recover from this injury without returning to an NBA game. Now, do the Brooklyn Nets say, well, we expect him to play soon? No, they say Kevin Durant's health is in his own hands and we're looking forward to him joining the court once he feels healthy enough to play. That is how you talk about players. And this is why it made me so mad, because as soon as it came out that Kelly Oubre was not playing, the conspiracy theories erupted about Kelly Oubre, saying that he's still mad about his free agency, saying that maybe he is healthy and it's reasonable for Robert Sarver to expect him to play, saying that he just doesn't want to go to Orlando. These are people who, of course, did not see the full report. All of that was unnecessary if Robert Sarver just kept his stupid mouth shut, and then they were on the same page. And that's why all of this pisses me off. I understand it's a little unreasonable. Like, it's not like a massive, massive mistake, but it's a completely unnecessary, avoidable mistake that they just made. And of course, I think it's hilarious that it came from Robert Sarver. Now, there was rumors that James Jones also said that he expected Kelly Oubre to be healthy earlier in the year on a Zoom call that was specifically with reporters. I didn't go looking for that because I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. I don't know that that's true or not. If you can find the report, feel free to look for it. But I know for a fact that Robert Sarver said it. You can hear the audio clip at the beginning of this episode. Maybe it's a little silly to get upset at this, but it's just the type of thing that I expect a professional organization to get right because it's so easy. And it's just a little disappointing to me that they didn't. Is that unreasonable?
It's not unreasonable, and we are the people who scrutinize this team the most. They're most under our microscope because I'm going to be honest, Mike, I hear what you're saying, and I will always basically take a player side over an owner. Even I couldn't really bring myself to care about this, though. I think that's kind of just reflected in the fact that so much of the national audience doesn't really understand why the Suns were invited to the bubble anyway. They're like, okay, Kelly's not playing, who cares? It's a contract year for him next year. Just let him sit out, rest up, and it doesn't matter. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, it was a stupid mistake on the part of Robert Sarver, and I think one of those situations where he's been better for a little while now, but kind of slipped up with his ego right there, and right. Maybe that's all it was. He spoke like a billionaire. He spoke with the liquid confidence that a billionaire would exude.
I expect him to play, he said.
Right, when talking about the health of one of his players.
Fairly specifically worded.
It was a bad mistake. I'm not going to beat him up over this one because the stakes just aren't there for me to do it. But it was a mistake. I do agree with you. I will say, though, there were a full 2 weeks between Sarver's comments and when Shams' tweet about Kelly officially sitting out, when that officially came out. Again, that doesn't excuse Sarver's comment. He should have just, if he didn't know, he should have just said, we don't know, and we'll find out when we know. But a lot can change in 2 weeks. So, I'm curious. I'd like to believe that there was some communication, obviously, with Kelly and the training staff and,
sure there was.
All levels of management in those 2 weeks.
Yeah. I bet a lot of it came down to it's hopeful that he's going to play. It's hopeful that he's going to play. And then Robert Sarver did his billionaire thing on that and said, yes, I expect him to play. That's the unreasonableness of a guy who nobody says no to, I think. But that's just my feeling on that. I don't think it's a major big deal, but I will be watching things like this a little closer to see how they word things in the future, to hope that they learn from this unnecessary, avoidable mistake. Anything else on that before we go to a break here, Sam?
That's all for me.
All right, we got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot. We got the actual basketball talk out of the way. Now we got to talk about some ridiculous logistics, the fun stuff.
Because this basketball stuff, not that fun. Not that fun. We'll be right back. There is no shortage of action going on at our exclusive partners, betonline.ag. Sports are slowly making their way back, and BetOnline is leading the way with the best odds and lines for all UFC, NASCAR, boxing, and soccer matches. And if you need even more, they have simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC simulations all day, every day, live on their website. Looking for something other than sports? BetOnline has hundreds of casino games, poker tournaments, and prop bets to check out. Visit betonline.ag and use the promo code BLUEWIRE for a free welcome bonus. That's one word, BLUEWIRE. BetOnline, your online wagering experts. All right, we're back. A lot more to talk about, like I said. First thing, once again, Shams Charania, Woj had a week. Shams reported that Kyrie Irving led a call of 80-plus NBA players, including Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony, Donovan Mitchell, and several players spoke about not supporting the resumed season due to nationwide unrest from social injustice/racism. There's been a lot of reported talk about what went down on these calls, what went down in some group chats, apparently, about this. But the gist of it is, some players are considering not going to Orlando, to the bubble. By the way, Florida, one of the biggest hotspots for the coronavirus in the United States. So just that alone could be a good reason to not attend. But this has gotten even more involved in that they're worried about this taking away from the cause that so many NBA players support. This is from Woj. One respected NBA player tells me, this is a sources, in quotes, tweet, "Once we start playing basketball again, the news will turn from systemic racism to who did what in the game last night. It's a crucial time for us to be able to play and blend that impact what's happening in our communities." So there's two arguments here. One, playing in the bubble will take away from our voice, and playing in the bubble will add to our voice and allow us to be a little louder with our messages. I don't think that you and I, Sam, will have the ability of ruling on that one. I'm not sure what will be more effective.
We don't.
Yeah. But I do think that the idea that some players may not actually go, and it could be star players, we don't know, is kind of the interesting part of this story, right?
I think they're well within their right to feel that way, and I think it's a little crazy, some of the criticisms that I've seen. Another guy who's been outspoken about it this week was Dwight Howard, who released a statement saying that he felt that there were many more players who feel this way who haven't spoken up because they feel like they're just kind of supposed to go along with the flow. And we don't know. We don't know what the actual votes look like of who wants to return to the bubble and who doesn't. But to the people who are saying that playing in the bubble will amplify the voice, that it gives these players a platform because they're playing basketball and they can use that platform to kind of advance the movement. I mean, I do disagree with that notion. I would say the most staunch and the most provocative thing that you could possibly do right now if you were a basketball player is to continue to disrupt, if you want to advance this message, is to continue to disrupt people's sense of normalcy. And the way that you could best disrupt that as a basketball player is by not going to the bubble.
Yeah, I think that would bring a lot of attention to that cause. I think that the NBA, here's what I think about this conversation in general. This conversation, even itself, is bringing a lot of attention to those causes. It's forcing people who are covering the NBA and basketball to now cover systemic racism in America. And I think that's what's important about this almost above all. That's why I love what Kyrie Irving's done. And I think Kyrie Irving can be a bit of a joke sometimes when he talks about a lot of stuff. Yeah, I mean, the whole flat earth thing was like an embarrassment for the NBA.
There are absolutely players who do the whole activism thing better. I'll just say that, yeah.
Yeah.
He's no Jaylen Brown.
Yes, and there was a rumor that he suggested in a group chat to start their own league. But is that crazy? I think this is the point to me. I don't think that's that crazy of an idea. Maybe it shouldn't be Kyrie Irving that's in charge of it, but the idea of the players taking more charge of their ability to be the product, if you will, and actually being in charge of that, trying to make the money that the owners do, not a crazy idea for me. That's not the point. The point is he's doing something. He's giving a voice to people who maybe felt like they did not have a voice in this. And now I'm sure there are a lot of reasons that people are considering not going to Orlando. Maybe some of it is a fear of getting sick or a fear of getting their family sick, like Joe Ingles has talked about. Maybe some of it is trying to speak of life into your cause as much as possible. And that's great as well. And I think the NBA did a good job in saying that if you don't go, you will not be punished. It's not a breach of contract. It's okay if you have your own reasons for not going. That's okay. Now, whether or not this will actually amount to a significant number of players not attending is another question entirely. Whether it will amount to any players not attending is something that we don't know yet, but we will know soon. So the other part of this news was that the NBA did make an agreement with the Players Association for players to let the NBA know by June 24th. So the day before we record our next episode, we'll know if there are any Suns players that are planning on not attending, or if there are any players in the NBA that are considering not attending in this. It would suck if it does end up dwindling down to, not interesting players, but what a fascinating story it would be for a lot of NBA, if any NBA players or a lot of NBA players do sit out for this cause.
Not to mention, and I just have to briefly kind of shift us over from the one epidemic of systemic racism to the other epidemic, which is the literal epidemic, that by next week in Arizona, the way things are going, who knows if any Suns players will have tested positive by then.
Absolutely.
And honestly, the crazy thing to me, man, is the way Florida's going right now. Like, it had to happen at Disney World because Disney World was the only place that could really give them these amenities. But shit, like Florida, the way that the COVID crisis is going down there right now, it just really makes you wish that they could have just pushed all the players into some like cornfield in North Dakota or something where they would have actually been safe. Because what's insane to me is the employees at Disney World are not actually going to be subject to the rules of the bubble. They'll have to wear masks and everything, but they're not going to be quarantining for 3 months. So if the crisis gets bad enough in the state of Florida and you have those people entering in and out of the bubble every single day, I just don't, I'm a little more worried this week than I was last week or 2 weeks ago about the actual feasibility of all of this working.
Yeah, yes, because you're a rational human being. That is the right response. I think it's okay to be a little bit worried. I did say the NBA should have waited a little longer to decide here because New Zealand hasn't had any cases and they're not letting people in and out of their borders. Imagine if they could have just gone there and just allowed the NBA players to live a relatively normal life in a country that handled this well.
Yeah, I have a feeling New Zealand would have charged a pretty penny for that. But I just don't understand what's so hard about it for the owners to fork over a little bit of extra money. I'm sure there would be plenty of Disney employees who would volunteer to quarantine themselves in the bubble in this once-in-a-lifetime unique experience for 3 months if you just gave them double time pay or something. Right. For 3 months. I mean, these are workers let's be honest, they're probably working for $10 or $12 an hour, many of them. They're minimum wage workers. And not all of them are, but many of them are. It wouldn't be that costly for a group of billionaires to kind of put some better procedures into place here and to mitigate the risk of spread. And I just don't understand why that hasn't happened. But I'm getting more worried about it every week as Florida is literally logging thousands of cases a day now.
Yes, it'll be interesting and we'll know soon. But speaking of procedures that are put in place, the rest of what we're going to talk about, I think, in this episode were stories that were practically made for this podcast, Sam. What a bizarre week for NBA stories. The NBA released, I believe, 113 specific rules for players and personnel associated with the NBA that will be applied to them while they're in the bubble. I'm just going to read some of these rules because I find them a little fascinating here. First of all, no caddies in the golf course, no sharing snorkels, no fiddling with mouth guards, which obviously it requires a Steph Curry joke. I'm going to allow you guys to fill that one in your own minds. I'm not going to go for the easy stuff there. No doubles in table tennis.
That's another easy one. I know what you're thinking, and neither of us are going to say it.
I just will say, table tennis allowed. Doubles is not. Kind of funny. This is a weird one. Players will not be allowed to shower at any of the ESPN arenas or facilities. That means no post-game showers until players are back at their hotels. That's just weird. I don't know.
I guess there's only a few showers that they would have to share at the facility. I don't know. This was a 113-page document that was drafted up.
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
insane.
And then there's another thing that players will wear a magic band. Now, there's been photos of this now. It's a ring that tracks their risk level of being sick. Now, that means that it tracks like their temperature and I think their circulation, things like that. And it's actually not required. It's an option for players to wear this. And I
It's really? Is it?
Yes, it's an option. It's
interesting.
optional.
My favorite take on this one was that I did dip onto Twitter today, and Kyle Kuzma tweeted something like, "This sounds like a tracking device to me." And then you scan your eyes down a couple of centimeters, and it says "Twitter for iPhone" underneath his tweet, as as if he doesn't have a tracking device connected to him at all hours of the day. But
yeah, maybe it's a Bill Gates conspiracy theory.
Basically, sounds like it.
Yeah, I assumed, I did kind of laugh and say, is this track their location? Because honestly, that's probably even better to understand their risk level of becoming sick. But all of this led to, how are they going to enforce this? And that was the funniest part, because they did say that the guidelines say that players can be fined, suspended, or removed from the campus if they break protocols, which obviously is a wide-ranging list of potential punishments here, purposely to allow the league to have as much control over what happens as possible. And I think that means that, as we know, the higher of a star, the bigger of a star it is that breaks a rule, the less likely they are to be kicked out entirely. They're in this to make money, after all. And then finally, the NBA has put together an anonymous hotline, which has become known as the Snitch Hotline, which allows players to call in and tell on other players who are breaking these rules. That part is fascinating and hilarious, and also required obvious Chris Paul jokes.
Yeah.
Do you think that players would actually use this?
Oh yeah. I think there are some. There are some guys who have no shame. Anything they can do to win the game, they're going to do to win the game. And Chris Paul's the obvious one, but there's other guys out there that you could probably name. Patrick Beverly,
Yeah.
Rajon Rondo would use the Snitch Hotline, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. LeBron would get somebody else to do it.
You think? Oh, LeBron would get somebody else to do it. That's perfect, because he really would.
Because he wouldn't do it himself, but he would get somebody that's like far enough removed from him that he has plausible deniability, because LeBron is a marketing genius, and he wouldn't allow himself to be implicated in any sort of snitch hotline controversy, which, by the way, I hope there is, because if this whole thing is going down the way it is, first of all, I just want to mention, this is weird. Like, this is super weird. It's not normal that we're talking about all of this. It's weird. It's like a weird, I've mentioned it before, ever since this all went down. It's like a weird dystopian future. It's like the Hunger Games. We're talking about not allowing these guys to live their lives as normal. And in order to keep other people safe, which is fair, it's a fair thing to ask. Not to mention, most of them are making millions of dollars to do this, so no pity going their way. But it could be a long time for a lot of them, so it's very odd that they have to follow all of these rules. But I guess it makes sense.
But they've got ping pong, man. Just no doubles. They're fine.
Ping pong, no doubles. They have video games.
They've got video games.
No communal headsets. So if they want to chat, if they want to play against their own friends that aren't in the bubble.
I think I saw something about how they can have cards to like play poker or whatever, but they have to be disposable cards.
Yeah, that is not happening. And by the way, if you had to choose the most hilarious rule for Chris Paul to snitch on, it would be because a player uses a pack of cards more than once. And that would be something that Chris Paul would snitch on. It's not like that's something that's completely, it's the tucking your jersey in of COVID rules, if you will. It's as inconsequential as that, but it's still something that he would do. So if I had to choose anyone doing anything, it would be Chris Paul calling about, I don't know, James Harden. I had to say James Harden. I'm not sure who's in the same hotel as Chris Paul, but calling and saying that he used the same pack of cards twice. But speaking of hotels,
yes,
we're finally going to get to this.
Oh, thank God. We needed to talk about this.
We're finally going to get to this. The Suns are staying at the Yacht Club. The Yacht Club. It sounds cool.
The luxurious
really
yacht
cool.
club. It is pretty cool.
Until you hear the names of the other hotels. the NBA is allowing players, or they're distributing players. I'm not sure the best wording for this, based on seeding in the playoffs, and that determines where they're staying. So what hotel they're staying in, which is the funniest possible way of doing. It's almost like it's like a comedy writer wrote it. Like it doesn't
genius.
even feel real.
It's really genius.
It's made for Twitter. Like it's like Adam Silver was just scrolling up and down his timeline on Twitter. He's like, what can we do that can make people laugh the most about this?
Yeah. But also kind of has some logical base in it. Like there should be some,
sure.
Hey, you took away the home court advantage. Here's your home court advantage. Some people get to stay at the Grand what is it? What the fuck is it even called? The Grand Destino? The Grand Destino.
And the Grand Floridian.
Yeah, and the Grand Floridian. So the Grand Destino is a luxury, what is it? A resort? Is that the official word?
They all are, I guess.
Yeah, but the Grand Floridian is a 5-star, and the Yacht Club is a 4-star. The way I've heard it is, I think the Yacht Club is essentially a Holiday Inn with a fancier pool and like several hundred extra dollars per night.
So here's the 3 hotels: the Grand Destino, which is the top tier hotel; Bucks, Lakers, Raptors, Clippers, Celtics, Nuggets, Jazz, and Heat. And here's the one thing I'll say about that. You said it makes sense. The one part that doesn't make sense is these are the teams that are going to be the most competitive with each other, and they're all staying together. They're all in the same hotel. That's just a little weird for me. The communal spaces where NBA players are allowed to hang out are being shared by the teams that are going to be the most competitive with each other in all of these ways. The Grand Floridian is the number 2. Thunder, 76ers, Rockets, Pacers, Mavericks, Nets, Grizzlies, Magic. That to me, it's got the Rockets, it's got the 76ers, this one, and it's got Chris Paul. This one is the most likely one to have the most rule breaking that's actually caught by the league, the Grand Floridian. And then finally, the glorious Yacht Club. Blazers, Kings, Pelicans, Spurs, Suns, and Wizards, which are the teams that are trying to make the playoffs. Which is kind of fascinating. They're all the teams that are out of the playoffs right now, which means they're the most competitive with each other, which means probably the coldest interactions at the beginning, the most fun at the end. The Yacht Club, maybe not the nicest hotel, but definitely the place with the best parties. I think it's going to be the most fun. These guys are all going to be a little disconnected from reality about halfway through this bubble.
Yeah,
and they're going to start partying.
And they're going to be pretty carefree. Supposedly you can't hang out in your room. Like if you can hang out with players of the other teams, but it needs to be outside or with proper distancing or whatever. Who knows? That might all go out the window pretty fast. I will say, should I bring this up?
Yeah.
I looked up some TripAdvisor reviews of the Yacht Club, and I want to be clear. It's got pretty good reviews, and you know how TripAdvisor is, you know how Yelp is, you know how those sites are.
Right.
Some people are Karens; they'll complain about anything. Mm-hmm. The Yacht Club has a 4.5 rating out of 5 stars. So this is by no means are the Suns toiling in some forsaken zone. But I had to scan through. I had to filter by the worst reviews I could find, and I just want to read a couple of them because it's funny. First of all, I need to stress this place. If any of the Suns out there, if any of the players like swimming, the pool is lovely. Supposedly. Everyone kind of gloats about how nice the Yacht Club's pool is, and that
I'm
makes
guessing
sense.
they're not going to be allowed in there.
No, I think I saw that they're allowed to swim. I thought that was one of the rules. I think
sounds
they
like
are.
a bad idea.
I don't. Well,
right.
I don't know. It's so spacious. I mean, I think they can spread out. I have no idea how COVID spreads in water. If it spreads more readily.
I imagine they haven't studied that yet.
Well, anyway, a guy named Jason Sweetman, first of all, he says, here's one thing you got to worry about. He says, quote, cockroaches galore. With only alternative to routinely spray chemicals in the room during the stay, easy access to parks and such, but not worth the health risk, which I thought was a little ironic, given the whole reason we're quarantining these players in the first place. But here, by far, and there were people who complained about other stuff too, overly well-done steaks, poor service.
Oh, no.
I have a feeling the poor service won't be as bad if you're catering to NBA players. Usually, I guess
it's going to be bad. You know, Trevor Ariza is in this building. So
yeah, it could be. I think it's more likely the NBA players abuse the wait staff than the other way around, quite honestly, in this situation. But my overall favorite review coming out of the Yacht Club just comes with this 4-word Subject title: Public urination okay here. And the review reads as this. It says, to be fair, like I said, guys, everyone loves the pool. He starts, to be fair, the pool is awesome. As is the access to Hollywood studios. Aside from that, skip it. The price, ridiculous. And on our second night, while my 5-year-old daughter and I were watching fireworks from our balcony, some drunk guy urinates from off his balcony 1 room above us.
Oh.
I notified the staff, who did little to nothing. We were given $100 off our room. That sounds like something to me.
Yeah.
They say we were given $100 off our room and told, quote, we all do things that we regret sometimes. I would think a resort which caters to families would do more to protect 6-year-old girls from lewd acts.
Oh,
End
no.
quote. I love the Yacht Club. I love that the NBA is returning.
What? First of all, the next time I stay at a hotel, I know how I'm getting $100 off the room. The person across the balcony from me is peeing off their balcony.
Yep.
Whether or not they do it, they did it. Now, the first and obvious question. Blazers, Kings, Pelicans, Spurs, Suns, Wizards. Which of these players on these teams is most likely to
urinate
off of their balcony? And
it's definitely one of the like foreign white big man. Like that has that has Aaron Baines written all over it.
Well,
or like a Yusuf Nurkic or something.
In Australia, that's just peeing, right? That's like,
yeah.
I guess it's allowed at the yacht club too. My first thought was Hassan Whiteside. I don't know. It's just, I guess that was my first thought. It seems like something he would do, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's Aaron Baines. Public urination is okay there. Maybe they should put that on the sign out front. The other thing that could be happening in this yacht club or the Grand Floridian or the Grand Destino, collusion. Will there be collusion? Will there be players talking about potentially teaming up in the future? And who should the Suns be trying to collude with? Now, the biggest risk is that people are telling Devin Booker, hey man, you should get off the Suns. Your owner is on the radio telling people that players are healthy when they're not actually healthy. That's crazy. But the obvious one is Damian Lillard, right? That's the obvious one. That's the one that you would want Devin Booker being like, hey, look, I like Ricky Rubio, man, but hey, you got me to be an all-star. You selected 100%. Me to 100%. Be an all-star. Anyone else?
Yeah, well, so I was going to say the funny thing about the Yacht Club specifically is there's this kind of love triangle that I think is going to go on of Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal. And all 3 guys are going to point at the other guys and say, hey, what are you doing? You know, like, what are you doing on that team that you're still on? There's going to be mass collusion, but those are the big guys that if you could pair any of those 2 together, I mean, let's be real, Ricky Rubio's great, but with Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard as Devin Booker's backcourt partner, either one of those guys. Yeah. Booker's just got to hope that he can convince one of those guys to potentially somehow come to Phoenix, which would be hard given I think Lillard is signed for like the next 5 years. But he needs to get one of those guys to come to Phoenix before they pair up together.
Yes. Absolutely, 100%. I just picture CJ McCollum just sort of brooding in the background as they talk. And this is why I think it's good that Kelly Oubre is there, right? We need him. He's the cool guy. He's the one that hangs out with models and goes to fashion shows and stuff. He's the one that we need to be recruiting these guys. Now, maybe he doesn't have a long-term future on the Suns. We don't actually know. But he's here now. He seems to like Phoenix. I just hope that they have like up-to-date photos. Or maybe Robert Sarver will record a new video in the practice facility again. But I hope they have actual footage of that practice facility so that he could be like, hey, Damien, check this out. This is our new facilities. Look at that. There's a pool table. No doubles in ping pong.
You can play doubles.
We can play doubles there. Yeah, there's no rules. It's Arizona. You could do anything you want. They just pretend like it doesn't exist. The disease doesn't exist here. But yeah, that's the Yacht Club. Very, 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 very funny way of divvying out the hotels. And shout out to the NBA for doing that, because that's a lot of fun to talk about, even if I do find it weird and odd and a little off-putting. Do you have any other thoughts on the Grand Destino, Grand Floridian, and Yacht Club? It's
not just collusion on a mass scale, but I guess I want to quickly talk about collusion on a small scale too. Here's a list of just kind of the best available impending free agents who are also staying in the Yacht Club. Guys who are going to be free agents in 2 months that, you could call over and say, hey, what do you think of Phoenix? Unfortunately, it's not a great list. Just like any list related to free agency this year isn't a great list. But here's the names I came up with. Bogdan Bogdanovic, he's staying there. Davis Bertans, that's a big one in my book. That's a huge one. Derek Favors, I put Aaron Baines on the list, but I mean, duh. Hassan Whiteside, Bryn Forbes, Shabazz Napier, Carmelo Anthony, if you wanted to go that route. You can quickly see how the quality of players is dwindling there. But really, those top couple guys, Bogdan's a restricted free agent. I think Sacramento's going to do everything in their power to keep him.
Yeah. If anything, you'd have a better chance recruiting Buddy Hield because he might actually get traded.
Honestly, yeah. Davis, though, I was going to say, Bertans just kind of shot at my list. I already, in all seriousness, he shot at my list. Like, I already liked Bertans as a free agent target for the Suns this year. He's a phenomenal shooter. He averaged one of the best in the NBA. One of the best in the NBA. He shot 9 3-point attempts per game this season at a 42% clip. The things that he could do for your spacing, especially you pair him with, say you've run lineups with Cam Johnson at the 3, Davis Bertans at the 4. You're not going to stop anyone defensively, but oh my God, that's going to give you the best gravity in the NBA. Yeah. He really did just shoot up my list in terms of guys that the Suns could feasibly get. I think there's going to be a lot of teams interested in him because of the weak free agent class that it is. But hey, you have an actual opportunity to maybe kind of make a relationship with this guy, not shake his hand because that wouldn't be proper distancing. But, talk to him a little bit behind the scenes and collude. Yeah.
Just shake his hand. Just make sure Chris Paul can't see you while you're doing it, and you'll be okay. I think I look at the list of Blazers, Kings, Pelicans, Spurs, Suns, Wizards. I don't see a lot of snitches there. I think you'll be all right. Like I said, I think this will be the most fun of all the hotels, but that'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. It seems like the news of the NBA is coming out at a pace that will allow us to continue to record podcasts on a regular basis. Once again, we appreciate everybody for listening. I am going to put a link to a survey, an audience survey, in the description of this podcast episode. It takes about a minute, less than a minute when I filled it out. I'd appreciate it if all of you clicked on that survey, filled it out real quick. Just let us know a little bit about you. That helps our advertisers to know a little bit about you as well, which will make the ads a little more relevant to you, assuming that you actually listen to them. Once again, we appreciate everybody for listening. Sam, you got anything else before we go here?
You can also leave personalized little notes in that survey.
But only if you tweet them at us.
Only if you tweet them at us. If you want Mike to read more penis ads, go for it. That's great.
We're just selling penises in the future. It's not even pills, just brand new
penis pills. I knew I fucked that up somehow. Penis pills. That's what I meant to say. Thank you, Mike. If you want to leave any sort of other messages, we've got a few already, and some of them are really fun. So, like Mike said, go and check that out. It only takes a minute of your time. Till next week. Thank you guys. That's all.
Yep. Thank
you. Yeah. I expect he will play. Yes. Yes. I expect he will play. Yes. Yes. I expect he will play. Yes. And the same with this. I expect he will play. Yes. And I think that's awesome. Yes. I expect he will play. You know, our team out there. Yes. Yes. I expect he will play.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose four-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in the new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series premiering Sunday, June 6th, only on Showtime.
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it, and trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Rose Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Roll Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment, plus it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you could go back to back to back, round after round after round. Row connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to row.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at row.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Row Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to row.co/safety info.